Reagan without being disagreeable. That's Romney's job, is making the case against Obama, coming up with a zinger, but with a zinger that doesn't backfire on you, or that looks to be overly harsh. Again, considering that Americans like the president, obviously what Romney has to do is acknowledge that likability and say, well, he's very likable, he's just not effective. I think that's going to be the thrust of his argument. It's very late in the game to turn around his personal unfavorability ratings, which are high in the swing states. And I think one of the things that's fascinating about that is, first, you don't have a lot of Romney advertisements directly from the Romney campaign in the swing states. There's some, but what you've got is you've got third-party organizations like American Crossroads that's also buying advertisement, basically attacking Obama, touting Romney as the alternative. So that's been a problem. And the other problem, of course, is, his 47% comment. And that's being used to devastating effect, in my judgment, by the Obama campaign and their advertising. And we're seeing that now in the last few days. You probably have seen that when you've been here.
Right. Now, both the candidates, on the Sunday shows and on the campaign trail have sort of downplayed their expectations in the build-up to the debate. Right. Now,
that's all a game.
Absolutely, it's a game. But even Chuck Todd on Friday said 4 years ago, Obama didn't perform that well in the debate, in the primary debates versus Hillary Clinton, whereas Mitt Romney was rather exceptional. Could we see perhaps Mitt Romney do very well? Because most respondents in a Washington Times Zobby poll believed that the president would be the one to quote-unquote win the first debate. Only 26% will win.
Right.
I kind of struggle with this because
I think there's something to the idea that Romney will do well. The question is, how well, and does it change the election dynamic? Yeah. And again, those are two very different things. If you go back in debate history, you look at the first Reagan-Mondale debate. Mondale did quite well, and Reagan really faltered. He had a public that was predisposed to vote for Reagan, and Reagan had to come back in the second debate and basically reassure voters that they could trust him to continue on the job despite his age for a second term. Right. And so in the end, I just wonder whether debate. I think Romney will do well in the debates. I think he did well in the Republican primary debates, by and large. But the question is, and we're in such a polarized period, do the debates really change things a whole heck of a lot? I'm not sure about that.
We've seen people on television, like you said, this is all a game. People are talking about this sort of like it's a build-up to like a football match or football game. It's more so than any other way. Is that sort of like a difference that we're talking about?
And that happens every 4 years. The only time the opposing campaign compliments the opponent is, when we get to the debates and they'll say, oh, he or she is the greatest debater since I'll be lucky just to get by, and, so that's a game that both sides play.
Now the Governor Romney has branded himself sort of a Mr. Fix-It, Playing Capitol, the Olympics, you name it.
Right.
Now, a Rasmussen survey indicates that 51% trust the governor more on the economy rather than Obama at 44%.
Right.
Now, there had been some shifts. So for a short while, Obama was the one who was trusted more on the economy, but that was only amongst registered voters. This is amongst likely voters. Poll after poll we just mentioned earlier, jobs, economy, unemployment are amongst the tops on the concerns when headed to the ballot box on November 6th. How can this be, we've kind of hammered on this, how can this be parlayed into public support for Romney?
Well, what Obama has done, and Romney has not countered this, because I think Romney has run a pretty ineffective campaign, in terms of staying on message and being on message. And he has been diverted, he's been all over the place. So I think that's been a real problem for him. I mean, look, if you go back and you look at the month of August, I think, when Obama signed an executive order, for example, saying, I'm not going to deport immigrants who come to the United States at a very young age and, have lived most of their lives in the United States. Well, for day after day after day, then immigration became kind of a central topic of discussion. Now we've had the 47% thing out of Romney's fundraiser, and that's sort of been front and center and all over the blogosphere and on the news.
Do you think he can get past that, though? I mean, there's always...
I don't think he can get past it. Why? Because it's something that he said behind closed doors, and what Obama's doing very effectively is saying, well, you're saying one thing in private, and you're saying another thing in public. Undoubtedly, Romney will try to come back and say, well, 4 years ago, Mr. President, you talked about people clinging to guns and their religion. You've said some things behind closed door that mirror what you really think. This is he can say, well, in my case, it's a distortion or it's taken out of context. He's trying to counter that in his own advertisements by talking directly to the camera and saying, I care about everybody. But again, he's had this problem getting this message through, which is a message that they wanted to get through even at the time of the Republican convention. Obama's been very consistent in terms of being on message, and the other thing that they've done effectively, in my view, is that they've said, look, this is not a referendum, it's a choice. So the question is Romney an acceptable alternative? And, they've basically done a pretty good job saying, well, no.
Well, we'll see what happens November 6th.
Exactly,
but
yeah.
Now, earlier we mentioned John Zogby.
Yeah,
now,
sure.
Now, when you're here on campus, and if and anyone ever has you, one of the things that comes up is Dr. White's good friends with John Zogby.
True.
It never ceases to not be mentioned.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's true.
Yeah. Now, he stated last month during a forum at the Democratic National Convention that he has no idea who's going to win.
Right.
What do each of the candidates... we talked about Romney a little bit.
Right.
What does perhaps Obama need to do? We talked about a little bit what Romney needs to do. What are some of Obama's vulnerabilities?
Well, his biggest vulnerability is no question the economy. Mm-hmm. Look, no president has been re-elected with greater than 7.8% unemployment.